Well, I was going to say, welcome to the dark side. Good morning, everyone. So glad that you're here with us. My name is Jeff Arnett. I represent all the old people. Yay for the old people. Wow, there's a lot of old people in the room. So glad you're here. Everybody who's joining us at our other campuses or online, welcome to you too. You know, I love the title of this series, Glow in the Dark. I was thinking about this recently. I remember when I was a kid, my dad had a pole barn, and often he would be out in there working on something after he got home from work, you know, and into the evening we'd have dinner. He'd go back out to the pole barn. And when he was working on his truck, sometimes, you know, the overhead lights were enough, but sometimes you need extra light. When you're down under the hood, some of you know what I'm talking about, and you're working in there. And so he had this light, and I couldn't do the mechanic work, but he would say to me, "Boy, I need you, come here, I want you to hold this light." And he would show me, he'd put the light up and he'd put it in my hand and he'd say, "Hold it right here." Now, that is not a complicated job, right? I can do that and just hold it right there. And I could for about 30 seconds, but I was a kid. And then I would get distracted and be like squirrel, you know, or whatever, you know, it was. And then the light would move and my dad would get so angry with me. He would yell at me. And I learned that that's why they call that light a trouble light, because every time I held it, I was in trouble. And of course, why are you so mad at me? Why are you getting so mad? It's just it's just, you know, I'm just holding this stupid light here, until I became an adult and I realized, you know, light's a good thing if it's focused in the right direction. I mean, that's something critically important. And in a way, that's what this series really is about. The fact that as followers of Jesus, we're to live our lives with a glow that goes outward, that goes out in the right direction. And if you're not a Jesus follower, we're so glad that you're with us. And I want to say that you may think that, you know, I say, well, you know, it matters that you glow as Jesus follower, and it does, of course, and that's what I'm talking about. But you might think this is not for you. I think it is. Because I think all of us want our lives to glow in the right direction. I think we want to make a difference in the world. Even if you're not sure where you're at with the whole God thing, I think you want your life to matter. But if we're honest, I mean, let's just try to be honest in the room together. If we're honest, sometimes we get so distracted by the stuff that happens in life, we forget about what it is we're supposed to be doing with our lives. Anybody agree with me on that? Okay, thank you for the 4 people that responded. Let's try it again. Anybody agree with me on that? Okay, thank God they're not all saints. Some of you in here are apparently perfect, and God help you because you're lying. All right, so if we're going to glow, if we're going to have an impact on the world, whether you're coming at it from a Christian perspective or just a general life perspective, you have to be aimed outwardly in the right direction. Jesus said it this way, and this is Matthew chapter 5, verse 15. He said, "No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket." Like that's rhetorical. Obviously, you don't do that. Instead, he says, the lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everybody in the house. It's aimed. And again, I don't think most of us are intentionally misshining our lights, that we turn inward and we're all about ourselves and thinking about ourselves. I think sometimes we just get distracted. So today we're going to talk about, you know, if you really want to make a difference with your life, if you want to have your glow, if you want to follow what God calls us to do, to be a light in the world that glows outward, I want to talk about how you can do that in a long distance way, how you grow in order to glow. So I'm going to start with a verse that some of you have heard, and it's going to sound a little bit intimidating, but hang with me on it. It's found in Revelations chapter 2, verse 10. This is what it says. Jesus speaking says, "Be faithful even to," say it with me, be faithful even, I thought I'd just cheer you up today. "Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you life as a victor's crown." Now, most of you are going to read this and say, well, that's really depressing. You know, what you're saying, I've got to be a martyr? I'm supposed to just die for my faith? Well, Jesus was in effect saying that. He was saying, if you're serious about this, you have to be serious enough that you would actually give your life up for it. But I think you could read this slightly differently and still be on track. I think you could read it, you need to be faithful until you die. however that death looks. Be faithful, he said, even to the point of death. In other words, until you die. So you live your life, you go long distance, you get to the end of the road and you're about to take your last breath. You can look back and go, I ran the race. I stayed on the track. My life had an impact that made a difference. And sometimes I fear that people looking back, they don't see that in their lives. Now, I do believe that we have distractions and things that pull us away. But I'm just going to challenge you. This is what I want you to think about more than anything else. Is your life aimed in the right direction? Maybe a bigger question is, do you even know what direction it should be going in? A lot of you know that I pastored this church from its first day for the next 42 years. And some of you might think, okay, well, now you're retired and you probably just got tired of it all, weary. And that would be a reasonable thought, actually. I will tell you a couple things about ministry. Number one is ministry can be exhausting because it's a little bit like a black hole because it's 24/7. You just never get away from it. It's not like you just, you punch out and then you go on and you have this other life. It's like it's always there all the time. Wherever you go, it's always with you. And so there was a fair amount of exhaustion and ministry can be difficult. And then if you add to that certain times, seasons in my life that were very difficult because of some of the things, hardships or heartbreak that can be connected to ministry. And you'd say probably you were just burned out. You were ready to be done. You just wanted to be over with. But the truth is for me, true confession here, that was not me. For the most part, I loved ministry. I loved being a part of what God was doing. And the funny thing is, I stayed in it for 42 years and I stayed in the same church for 42 years. And it's kind of like, because I saw God do these amazing, crazy things. And I didn't even know half the time what was happening. Some of you know this, like I had no education in this. The first funeral I ever went to in my life, I was supposed to officiate. I didn't even know what happened at funerals. First wedding, all this stuff. It's like, I had no idea. Nobody told. I remember people come in and they'd say, well, you're a pastor, we need some counseling. And they start talking to me and I'd be like, you what? Are you kidding me? What is wrong with you? I didn't know any of that stuff. And in spite of that, I watched God do these things that were just so far beyond me. I was thinking about this. I remember this is in the very earliest time when we were in this building. We'd been in existence as a church for a few years, and then we got this building in 1986. So this was in the late 80s. And at that time, I had one employee that was part-time, and it was like a receptionist, secretary, whatever. And she wasn't there one day. I was out here. The original part of this building was 1/8 of what it is now. Can you believe that? It just seems like it seemed big to us at the time because our church was real small. Well, I'm in my office, which was our auditorium was part of the lobby. That was our entire church was the lobby, and basically just the lobby was the church we had. And my office was over in the front, and I'm sitting in my office, nobody else there. And I hear gravel crunching, some cars coming down because everything was gravel back then. And I look out my window, and this guy pulls his car up to the church building, turns it off, and he's just sitting there, hands on the wheel. And I'm like, well, if he wants something, I guess he'll come in. Front door's unlocked. I'm here. I was working on a message, I think, and I didn't really want to talk to him. But, if he wanted to talk, he can come in. And so I'm sitting there, and he's not coming in. And I look out my window again, and he's still there like this. Now, this was long before cell phones. He wasn't checking texts or email or anything, which most people do while they're driving anyhow. But he was just sitting there. And I'm like, well, I don't know why he's there. Maybe he needs to rest or whatever. And I never heard it as an audible voice, but I felt inside God speaking to me, go out and talk to him. I'm like, I don't want to. Anybody ever done this with God? No, God says, go out and talk to him. I said, I don't want to. And it was just this persistent, get out there and talk to him. Finally, I'm like, fine. This is the majority of my being obedient to God. Most people think you've just said yes to God. No, I've said fine is mostly what I've done, So I got up fine. And so I go out and I walk over on the driver's side of the car, and his window's down, and he's sitting at the car like this. He never even looked at me when I went in front of the car and walked over to the side, and he did not turn to look at me. He's just like this, looking like head down, kind of. I said, hey, no response. I said, you doing okay? Not really. I said, what's going on? I said, would you like to, we could go sit in my office and talk. Would you like to do that? I guess. I will never forget this. So he gets out of his car and follows me into my office and sits down. So what's going on? It took him a long time to get there. He said, finally, I'm on my way to, he was on his way to take his own life. And then he explained to me how he was going to do it. He had it planned out. It had to do with his business, so it would look like an accident, I think, for insurance purposes or whatever. He had it all thought through very carefully. He said, I'm on my way to do it, and the stupid car pulled in here. He said, I've never been here. I don't know who you are. I don't have any idea why I'm here. I said, well, maybe. And nobody had ever trained me. How do you deal with a person who's suicidal? I never heard anything. I just started talking to him about the difference that God had made in my life. And that day, in the late 80s, that guy gave his life to Jesus in my office. I got to baptize him. I watched him seek to follow God. I saw that happen, and I've had that happen so many times over the years, and I have just said to God repeatedly, I'm in. I'm all in. And so I went the distance, and then I did retire, not because I was worn out and burned out, and I could tell you stories like that over and over and over. Now, of course, there were seasons where there was a lot of heartbreak, some seriously difficult stuff. I felt the pain of watching people leave their families, leave their connection with God. I watched people and heard about people who would say things about me that stuff that was not true. And there were times when I felt so tired and discouraged that I actually thought, why didn't I go into plumbing? I could have made a bundle of money and not had such a pain in the neck of all these people that I'm supposed to be loving, which I don't love very much. And I had those feelings at times. But somehow, after 42 years, I was still standing. I love seeing God work. And I don't think it's an unreasonable question, because I'm asked this on a fairly regular basis, particularly by guys who are young and wanting to go in and become a pastor. They'll say, how did you do it? How did you go the distance? Because I don't know if you know this, there are far more ex-pastors than there are pastors, right? So they'd be like, how is it after decades you're still standing? And I've thought a lot about this because I think it's a reasonable question. And I will tell you that I've come to the conclusion that it's not because I was just that good. I've come to the conclusion that there were things, obviously, that God did. And there are things that I did that made a difference in my life that helped me grow. So what I want to talk about is that. And this is going to be real personal. I'm telling you my experience, and some of you may say, I don't know if I see it the same way. That's fine. I will just tell you that what I learned is that it takes more than desire or hard work. If you want to grow, to glow, if you want to glow long distance in the right direction, it takes more than just having desire or hard work. How many of you have started a project and you had great desire and you worked hard at it, but then it failed anyhow? Come on, does that happen? You know it does. It happens all the time. Obviously, those things matter, desire and hard work, and I'm an advocate for them. And then I'll state the obvious. Some of you go, well, I know what made the difference in your life. It was God. All right, yes, I understand that, okay? It was God. But I'm going to talk about what I believe was my part and what I think, and again, you can disagree with me on this, but what I think is your part. And I think it has to do hugely with what I would call diligence and persistence. You get knocked down, but you get back up again and keep on going. And that only happens when you have what I would call, for lack of a better term, healthy little habits, disciplines in your life that you do consistently that keep aiming you in the right direction, which I love talking about healthy little habits because, in my opinion, those things have kept me healthy inside, and they have kept me going the distance when everything would have pushed against it. I agree with the Chinese proverb that I read quite a while ago. I love what this says. It says, if you want to know your past, look into your present conditions. In other words, if you want to know what your past was like, look at where you're at right now because your past got you here. And it says, if you want to know your future, look at your present, what's the word? Look at your present actions. You could say it this way. You want to know what your future is going to be like? I tell you what your future is going to be like. Seriously, I'm picking you out. I'm sorry. I hope you're okay with that. You look at the little habits that you have in your life today, they will set your future up. You can actually know. Now, I understand unexpected things happen and things go south and you get hit by things. But the truth is, whatever it is that you get hit by, those habits will inform how you respond to what you get hit by. You want to know what your future is going to be like? You look at the stuff that you're doing consistently, repeatedly today. That produces what happens in large part in the future. Now, most of us hear that and we're like, okay, I get that. That's brain dead. You got to have some healthy little habits in your life. Here's the problem with this, and this is where I want to take a turn, all right? I just want to get you thinking about this. When I say healthy little habits, most of you are going, I get it. I got to eat right. I got to exercise. I got to do things to be healthy. And you think that that's what I am referring to when I say healthy little habits. And I'm all for that because I think you should have that in your life. But this is what I think. I think we think about goals that we should set habits for that are more influenced by how the world sees life than by how God sees life. So let's just be honest. All of us want to look good. We want to be physically fit. I mean, you want to be ripped. You want to have muscles. You want to have good body tone. You want to have all that stuff. It is like a god in Western culture. Come on, is that true? You know it's true because you looked at yourself in the mirror before you came today, doing the best with what little you had. All right, I understand that. I look in the mirror sometimes and just go, "Don't bother." It's done. We all want to look good. And so we go, got it. Need some healthy little habits. Here's my argument. Just hang with me. I'm all for healthy little habits in your physical condition. But is it possible that maybe there's something you should be giving your energy to before that? Is it possible that there are healthy little habits that should be happening about your life, not just to look good or to be, quote, healthy physically, but what about who you are as a person? Is it possible? And here's why this question matters so much. All of us have a limited supply of discipline and willpower. Now, they've done studies on this. This is a given. This is not just something I'm saying, off the cuff. Everybody knows this. You only have so much discipline and willpower in your life. Every day you start with a bucket full of discipline and willpower. And you start using it the moment you wake up and start making thousands of decisions that you make every day. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I do this? Do I do that? And so you start using that finite amount of willpower. And have you noticed that as you get towards the end of the day, there doesn't seem to be as much discipline and willpower in your life? Come on, anybody know what I'm talking about? In the morning, the kid does something wrong and you're like, all right, let's talk about this. This is why you need it. You've got discipline. You're not yelling at them. By 8 o'clock at night, you're like, just get out of my sight. I know about this. Not just with kids. I know about this when it comes to willpower, when it's eating. It's like, I wake up in the morning, you want to tempt me with a piece of cake or something. Now, nothing. I tap into the willpower that I have and the discipline I have in the bucket. No, it's no problem. You get about 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night, my cupboard doors will actually open of their own accord. And voices will come out. Come enjoy the sweetest joys in your life. Enjoy us. We're here waiting. Anybody know what I'm talking about, or am I all alone? You get to the end of the day. Now, your bucket refills overnight as you rest, but you have a finite supply of willpower and discipline. Based on that truth, what do you give that bucket full to first? And I think this is an important question because I think most of us just buy into what the culture says. And well, I got to exercise, got to get up, I got to get to the gym. And I think you should go to the gym. I got to make sure I think you should eat right. I'm not against it. See, I don't think it's black and white. I think it's what's most important. If you have X amount of willpower available to you, if you have X amount of discipline, what should it go to first? And I think that's a question that we're not asking enough. I think actually we're building healthy little habits, but they're not around the things that are most important in my life. All of us have this limited supply. What's most important? I think we ought to be asking, is what I'm giving my energy to what matters the most? When I become 75 or 80, or if I live that long, 90 years old, will I look back and go, I'm so glad I gave myself to that? Again, we're not talking about black and white here. We're talking about higher or lesser priorities. Like, let me just go back to getting in good shape. I think it's great. Go to the gym and pump iron and do all whatever it is that happens in gyms. Do it. It's great. Can I just say, though, whatever your ideal body looks like, when you reach that, enjoy it. It ain't going to last, baby. Okay, I'm pushing 70, right? So next year I'll be 70. And I am so aware, I never was in great physical shape, like an athlete or anything, but I'm just aware what I had is just slow. It's going away. And ain't nothing I can do about it. You go, oh yes, you can. When you're older, you can still exercise. And I do, I get that, but that doesn't stop stuff from sagging. Recently, a friend of mine sent me a picture, and I was standing on this platform. I had a short sleeve shirt on, and I was pointing up like this. And it looked like I was pointing to a scripture that was on the screen behind me. And I think he was highlighting the scripture on this screen that it had spoken to him, But as soon as I got the picture, as soon as he texted me the picture, of course, I took the picture. You know how you do it, and you open it up so I could look deeply at the scripture and think about the scripture. Right? No. I opened it up so I could look at Jeff. And what I saw when I had my arm up like this was skin flapping down like some old person. I thought, you could have photoshopped that. That should not be in that picture, And that's just the way it is. So I'm going to ask you, when you get to the end of your life, will you be able to look back and say, what I gave the lion's share of my willpower and discipline to was to become the person that was most important, that I was called to be. And so maybe we should be shooting higher than we are. Now, here's what I think. Before you start down making healthy habits for yourself, there are two things that I think are critically clear. And that's really all I want to talk about today. And here's the first one is that you need to be clear on your purpose. You need to be clear on your purpose in life. Seriously, what is your purpose in life? Now, that's an interesting question, isn't it? It forces you to kind of look inward and go, well, what is my purpose? See, if all we're thinking about is surface level stuff, we go, well, I want to get in shape and I want to do this. And, and so we'll give some kind of general vague, I want to make a difference in the world, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean anything. What is, Dan, your purpose? And this is a very important question. And it's one I think that we don't ask sometimes when we should be. Because this would then inform how we spend from our bucket. If my purpose, if my ultimate calling, however you want to say it, is to be this, then should I give my energy to all of this? There's so many distractions in life. Come on, would you agree with that? That pull us away. I've often likened it to a person who says, it's Saturday, I don't have anything to do today except I'm going to clean the garage. And so you go out in the garage and it's 8 o'clock in the morning. You're like, this place is going to shine. It's going to look beautiful. I'm going to get rid of some of this garbage. And so 10 minutes in, you grab something and you go, oh yeah, I know where this needs to be stored. It shouldn't be here. I'm going to take it to that closet in the basement. So you take it downstairs to the basement, you open that closet door and crap falls out on top of you. All right. And so you say to yourself, well, I need to pick this up and I need to take care of this. Come on, anybody know what I'm talking about? And then while you're picking it up, you go, what is this? No, this doesn't go here. This needs to be out in another place in the house. And so you take it there. And And before the day is over, you've gone 1,000 places and put stuff everywhere and done all kinds of things. And if that was your ultimate goal, yay. But the garage is still a wreck. Because you got lost in distractions instead of being clear on the purpose. First, be clear on your purpose. What is God's call on your life? What is that? And maybe here's what's even worse. I think sometimes it's like we lose sight of our purpose. For many of us, what's even worse, and I don't want to say this in a condemning way, but you're not even sure what your purpose is. So I'm just going to ask you, what is your high calling? Like, what is your prime directive? Now, I'm not asking you to answer out loud. I'm just asking you, do you know it? If I said to you, just let's get a piece of paper out, write down your prime directive for your life, could you do it? Do you have clarity on it? I think this is a legitimate question. And I think this is the problem, is that life is so filled with distractions that we're wandering off over here and we're wandering off over there and we're doing all this stuff and we're never really headed in the direction of what we're meant to do with our lives. And if you think you don't have a purpose for your life, you are wrong. But this is where many of us live our lives. We're so distracted. And actually, the Apostle Paul writes about this, and he tells us, kind of by way of example, what we should not be. And this is what he says in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 14. I don't know if you guys have that one up. I'd love to have that. He says, then, or maybe he would say it this way, we should no longer be, what's the next word? In other words, we should grow up. But what happens with infants? Tossed back and forth by the waves, blown here and there by every wind of teaching, by the cunning and craftiness of people, or you could say advertisers, or you could say the writers of the algorithm for social media, or you could say 1,000 different things. But the craftiness of people and their deceitful scheming, in other words, they have a plan for your life, but it is not God's plan for your life. So here's what you should not be. You should not be like infants tossed in what's the latest way? It hits you and you're going, oh yeah, this is cool. And you wander off into that and that's where you're at. And then another wave hits you, oh, this is cool. And you wander off into that. What is your prime directive? Now you may say, this doesn't sound like a church sermon. It very much is. God has a call on your life. What is it? And I'm talking about you specifically. And can I just say this? What I'm talking about when I speak to your prime directive is not what you would do for a job. It's what you do because you are you. And whether you're bagging groceries or doing brain surgery, whether you're an educator or a physical therapist, whatever your vocation is doesn't really matter, because who you are is what you bring to whatever job you work. Come on. And some of us need to hear that because we think, I just need to get this job. If I get this job, I'll be happy. I disagree. And you can feel free to disagree with me and be wrong. That's fine. Your job is not what will bring you joy. But there's nothing like knowing you're doing what you were meant to do. And you can do that working anywhere, because it's not about your job, it's about you. It's about what's happening in your, most importantly, who are you? What are you called to do? I've worked on this, and over the years, this is what I will tell you, is that this will evolve. Your prime directive, as you learn what your giftings are, as you sense a deeper grief towards something and you go, I think I'm called in that direction. Your prime directive can evolve and change over the years. And I've watched this as I've written, call it a life statement, call it a purpose statement, call it whatever you want. But you're saying, this is where I am to dedicate my life and passion and energy to be this person. Not just to do this thing, but to be this. What is that? What is that? And I'm trying to provoke you to think about it and say, maybe I need to take some time and just really process this. Could I actually write it down? I've not only written mine, and over the years it's evolved and I change it, but I'm currently where I'm at, and this has been years now, but I have 10 traits of the person who lives this out. This stuff is critically important, and I'm telling you that I think it's not going to make you perfect, but it's going to keep you on track if you know who you're called to be. And I know this is challenging. I know some of you go, it feels overwhelming to me. I'm telling you, it's worth it. This is the way life is. You are not going to go through your life and not get distracted. You're going to be like me when I was holding the light for Dad. You're going to get distracted and move the light around. That's just part of life. And you're going to go, ooh, that is cool. And you're going to wander over here and you're going to mess around with that and you're going to be focused on that for a while. Here's the question. When you're here, this is why this is important. When you're here, after you go over here and go, oh, this is cool, and you mess around with it for a while, do you remember what your purpose is? Or if you don't even know, or you've lost sight of your purpose, is it now the next distraction that leads you over here, and pretty soon you're further and further and further until you're in the dark? Because you lost sight, or maybe didn't even know what this road is. Ann and I, my wife and I, we love road trips. We really do. And she loves what she calls brown signs. You know what those signs are? They're like, there's this, national thing or this state thing or whatever. They tell you little things, and she loves for us to go off and check these things out, which is good, as long as we don't forget where we're going. This is good preaching. I know you're just sitting there staring at me, but this is good. And I think it's stuff we need to hear. First of all, so important, is that you need to be clear on your purpose. And I love something that I read in a book that I was going through with my tribe. It's by an author named John Eldredge, and he's writing them in, but I think this speaks to everybody because it talks about the kind of life we're supposed to live. He calls men warriors, says they should live as warriors, and this is what he says. This is a quote. He says, above all else, a warrior has a vision. He has a vision. He has a transcendence to his life. In other words, it's not just the daily stuff. He has a transcendence to his life, a cause greater than self-preservation. And then he goes on with some brutal honesty. He says, for years, all my daily energy was spent trying to beat the trials of my life and arrange for a little pleasure. I read that and I was like, that is so poignant, because that is so much of how life can go, is that we just we're reduced to just trying to get through the day and get through the week, and thank God it's Friday, and we're just trying to get this thing taken care of. And there's no transcendence. There's no sense of vision and purpose. Number one, be clear on your purpose. And then habit number 2 is set habits of review. And I cannot tell you how important this is, because here's what happens is some of you will go, I think I understand what Jeff is saying. I need to be clear on my purpose. And so, okay, you get it and you write it down. This is my purpose. And then you put it somewhere. And then 6 months later, you don't even remember what you wrote. Anybody ever done that? You know what we learned with staff here at TVC when I was leading? Is that we would get together in a meeting and we would be brainstorming or visionizing or whatever, and we'd come up with an idea and go, oh, that would be amazing. That's going to be so awesome. And we'd all talk about it, and we'd be like, yes, we're going to do this. That's great. And then like 9 months later, someone in a meeting would go, do you remember that thing we said we were going to do? And we all just look and put our heads down like, oh, yeah. That thing that was going to be so cool. We never talked about it. And what we learned is that we had to appoint people as champions, somebody who would speak up and remind, because what's in front of you is what you're going to see. And so this is my challenge to you. Not only do you need to be clear on your purpose, but the second thing is you actually need to review it every day. And I'll tell you why that's so powerful. It's because when you review this, when I look at my purpose statement, when I look at who I know I'm called to be and review that daily, when I look at those 10 character traits of that man that I'm called to be, this is what happens to me so often. And it happened to me. I'm out walking this morning in the dark, and I'm thinking about it. and it hit me. Yeah, you were such and such a place, and you were not for example, one of the things that I want to do, part of who I want to be, is I want to be a person that sees people that I see you, I think you are more important than me. And so I read this saying a while ago, and I repeat this every day, is that I want to be not the most interesting person in the room. I want to be the most interested person in the room. I want it to be more important that I hear about your stories than I tell you about mine. But you know how I'm wired? Me first. After I get done telling you my stories, which are endless, then maybe you can tell me one of yours. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Some of you who are enter the room mouth first like I do, you understand what I'm saying. Well, what this does, this constant review, is it keeps reminding me, this is who I want to be. And I'm almost 70, and I'm not there yet, but I have moved the ball down the field because I've consistently remembered this is where God's called me, and God, with your help, this is where I'm going. And I review it, and I remind myself. And I'm still standing. Not because I'm that good, but because I stayed focused on the thing that matters. So I challenge you to do the same. I'll close with a quote, and take it for what it's worth, by Calvin Coolidge. It's what he says: nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent won't. Nothing's more common than an unsuccessful man with talent. Genius will not. Unwarranted genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world's full of educated derelicts. My West Virginia family called them educated idiots. And then he concludes, persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. And he's not saying they're God. He's saying, you want to go somewhere? You got to set healthy little habits in the right direction. Let me pray. God, we need to hear this stuff. Because so often we're kind of like John Eldridge said he was. We're just kind of getting through the day and trying to arrange for a little fun. Help us to be people who live with passion and vision and purpose. And may it glorify you as we seek to glow outwardly in the right direction, long distance. In Jesus' name, let's say together, amen.